everyone, and welcome to another video. I'm Simply G, and today I'm going to be showing off all of the anime and manga that I got for October. Not a huge amount, but some exciting finales, some interesting debuts, and a little bit to get through. So let's get straight into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. So we'll start with the anime, and I actually got two final entries in two different series this month, both on Blu-ray. The first being the very long-awaited, much enjoyed, I think this is maybe a little bit divisive, but the highly anticipated, widely celebrated Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.11 Thrice Upon a Time. This is the fourth and final installment to this Evangelion Rebuild series. I really enjoyed this movie. I really liked how this quartet of films wrapped up on itself. It was very much a reflection of what Evangelion has been for the past 20 odd years. It just was a really interesting experience. I'm not going to say it's a perfect film. I don't think that's the case. It is very divisive, but I do think that for me it was a satisfying conclusion to this very grand story that we've seen in multiple anime iterations now, but also manga and novels and all sorts of variations. Evangelion has been just a juggernaut of a thing that no singular person can really wrap their head around, and I think this particular film and this series of films being a reflection of just the cult hit sensation that is Evangelion. Anno has done a pretty good job in capturing everything that Evangelion has been, what its legacy has been, but also creating a more hopeful reflection of humanity than the original end of Evangelion film had. I really enjoyed this. It was one that I think most anime fans know was released during the pandemic. It got a worldwide streaming release via Amazon, I believe. At least that's where I watched it. And so it's been one that has been highly anticipated. This was, of course, going to be released on Blu-ray, but it was just kind of a question of when. This franchise has had a bit of a rocky history in the last 5 or so years, just with the various English iterations of it. Obviously with Netflix owning the television rights now, Funimation previously owning the films, and then now they don't technically exist, and then Kara took rights, but it's just been a bit of a mess, like the series itself. But as said, this was a very satisfying conclusion for me personally with this film, and I only got the standard Blu-ray release, namely because I didn't really see the need to have the collector's edition. This sort of release isn't 100% one-to-one, but it's very similar to the Australian releases of the previous films, and I'm kind of just waiting for a complete movie collection box set down the line, or to replace this once we do have a wider release in Australia. So it might be a bit more similar to what we've gotten here in the past. I don't know if that will be the case, but we'll see. Very different series, very different style of film, but also the finale to a very large franchise, one that I've been a fan of for a decade now, which is horrifying to consider. But this is the second and final part of Free the Final Strike. This is the final movie, or the second half of the final story arc, I guess, of Free, the franchise, which started with Iwatobi Swim Club. It has three seasons? Yes, 3 television seasons, a myriad of films, including these 2, but also a couple recap films, as well as the prequel film, which is also fantastic, just by the way. I haven't watched this one. I haven't watched the first half of this either, so I'm just probably going to do that this afternoon. Now that I have both, I watch them back to back. Certainly one that has persisted in my in my interests for the last 10 years. It's nice to see, like, I do think that this series went on for longer than it really needed to. If you were to ask me as a fan, I do think that the second season of the anime would have been like the perfect place to end the series, and it kind of was the end of the series for a very long time. The prequel film obviously is a prequel, and I do think it was a good addition to the series, but continuing it, it has gotten like a bit cumbersome, just with the amount of characters and all sorts of, you know, things that they have to try and cram into 13 episode series. But in saying that, I do love watching these characters. I have such a soft spot for pretty much the entire cast. Not everyone, but certainly all of the main characters. Yeah, you know, this is the story of a boy who it was such humble beginnings. It was the story of a teenage boy who, with the help of his friends, reestablished the swim club in his high school. And, well, not even with the help of his friends, kind of his friends were doing it and they dragged him into doing it. And then through that he reconnected with another old friend, and then they reconnected and became friends once again, despite having gone their separate ways in years prior. I love this series. It's such a, like, I'm not going to call it high art. It certainly got its fan service, and I don't just mean like boys swimming. It's certainly like a really lovely cast of characters. They're a bunch of goofballs. I love them. And they're just like really good kids. I don't know. You always root for them. Like, man, it's just really good. It's one of my favorite Kyoto Animation series for a reason. It's been one of my favorite series for a very long time. And yeah, it's nice to see it come to a natural conclusion and like actually concluding. And hopefully not have any more spin-offs. I think this is the proper end to the series. To manga, we have a couple debuts. First is the kind of general trim size manga. This is a series that I read the first chapter of when it was released on the Shonen Jump app and really liked it, but decided to I was waiting for more chapters to be released and then to binge it, but I just never got back to it. But now that it's in print, I decided to jump on the first volume. I read it very recently, and man, this is a really, really good series. This is Akane-banashi by Yuki Suenaga and Takamasa Moe. This is the story of a high school girl, or a teenage girl, I should say. She is in high school, but her father, when she was younger, was a rakugoka, so a professional rakugo performer. But during his exam to kind of graduate to headliner to the next stage of his career, Pretty much everyone in that exam was expelled from the school that they were, students of, Rakugo school that they were students of, including her father, despite his his natural talent and character creation. He was a very talented but not necessarily popular Rakugo performer, or well known, I guess. He was certainly a struggling performer, which is why when he was expelled, he kind of, hung up his hat and just decided to get a quote unquote real job, much to his daughter's despair. And so instead, she has decided to become a Rakugoka herself in order to prove to the world that her father's Rakugo is like amazing and valuable and worth listening to. Yeah. I really enjoyed this. I liked Akane. She's very spunky. This really reminds me of, obviously, like when you talk about Rakugo and manga about Rakugo, the one that comes immediately to mind for me, and I'm sure a lot of people, is of course Descending Stories, which is a much heavier drama, but is still about like Rakugoka and performances and how much a performer puts into their art, and like this discussion of talent versus hard work, but with a very heavy dramatic focus on Yakumo, who is the main character of that series. And I adore Descending Stories. I think it's one of it. Honestly, it feels like high art. There's an anime adaptation I recommend if you're looking for a really complex and in-depth and just beautifully executed exploration of the creative process and the difficult relationship between art and artist. It is outstanding. But we're not talking about literary great Descending Stories. We're talking about Akane-banashi, which is also really good. I really enjoyed this first volume. Akane is very spunky, very fun. What I was going to say is this series really reminds me of, like, it seems like a child of two of my favorite series, which are of course Descending Stories, but also Chihaya Furu. Akane reminds me a lot of Chihaya or Yota from Descending Stories. A very outgoing, really like having talent and like wanting to achieve this next level and to prove to the world, to the people, the value of, in Akane's case, her father's particular style of Rakugo. In Chihaya's case, this love of Karuta. And I love it. I think Akane is a great depiction of this kind of character type. And if you liked either or both of those series, you probably will enjoy this one. Obviously, this is a Shonen Jump series, so like the structure I am expecting to be very similar to something like Hikaru no Go or even Haikyuu, where although it's not a like traditional sport in the same way that volleyball or technically Go is, or Chihaya Furu with Karuta. Rakugo, like, it's an artistry, but you can kind of see how it's similar to like music series where there's going to be competitions, there's going to be like our main character put into tests and competitions to try and better her skills, and then she grows and gets better, and one day she'll go to Koshin. It's that I'm expecting it to be that style of character growth, which is what you expect from this kind of, from Shonen Jump, just full stop. This fits very well within like this sports series niche that Jump does have a couple sports series in it currently, which is good. That's always, you always want. But I do think that this slides into kind of that style of storytelling. There's no grand battles. There's no magic. There's grand battles of the verbal, like, style, but, you know, it's not... You would liken it to something like Haikyuu or to Hikaru no Go, I think. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. This is a series that's still ongoing. There's 90-something chapters, I think. It's been a little while, and I can't check right now, unfortunately. But it's still going strong, still seems to be doing really well. People really seem to enjoy it. And dang it, that's good enough for me. So yeah, this was a great first volume. It's not one that I'm going to be collecting with like super high priority because it is, one, it's a Viz Shonen Jump series. They are ubiquitous. They're not going to go out of print anytime soon. And I just expect that I'll be able to read it on the app if I'm wanting to catch up. And then at some point I will purchase the volumes when I have the money spare, probably, or maybe a slower month, because there is just so much manga coming out that I can't necessarily prioritize Viz stuff as most important. Is a debut large-term manga series from Kodansha. This is a series I'd heard some pretty good things about. It has an anime coming up very soon. It was a digital first release, and has recently made the transition to print. I don't remember if it was like always going to be coming out in print, but with the anime coming out, I mean, it makes sense that they would want it in print. Yeah, I was wanting to check this one out. I read it. I really enjoyed this first volume. This is a genre that I don't necessarily follow a huge amount of, but seems to be really resurging in popularity. And that is Windbreaker by Satoru Nii. This is a series about a high school boy who has just recently moved towns to this particular town that is kind of like notorious for delinquents. So he's come to this town to become the strongest delinquent, the boss of all the delinquents, because all of these delinquents go to this particular school in the area, and, you know, they're just known for, you know, causing fights and mischief and whatever else. Anyway, he gets to this town, he's starting school, it's not quite the first day yet, but he learns that although, yes, there are so many delinquents in this town, and it's kind of notorious for that, and this particular school certainly has a reputation for attracting kids who like to start fights and, you know, do troubling things. Actually, no, they've really changed their image. They may be delinquents, but now they're fighting to like establish justice in their town. So this particular school, the students kind of rove the streets and protect all of the normal townsfolk from any other bad delinquents from neighboring areas. So our main character, Haruka, he's come to the school wanting to be the strongest, wants to fight whoever wants to fight him. But he's not, like, because of how he looks, which, as you can tell from the cover, is quite striking and I'm sure has caused him a lot of grief in the past. We haven't got quite there yet, but that's, you know, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that he probably has some hang-ups about how people have treated him in the past. So he doesn't really trust people. He doesn't really understand this idea or the appeal of like helping other people. But we know, us discerning readers know that there will come a time where he will learn the true meaning of teamwork and friendship and community. And maybe he'll become the strongest fighter of this school of good kids beating up bad people to help their town. Very vigilante justice style of story here. Yeah, it's fun. I liked it quite a bit. The premise is fun. The kids that have been introduced so far are all goofballs. I like them a lot. Delinquents can be like a very fine line. You can make them just like absolutely just, oh my god, it's not appealing or interesting whatsoever. But this, like, delinquent with a heart of gold style of story was very big in the 90s, very big in the early 2000s. So it's interesting to see it like come back. And I, yeah, as I said, really enjoyed this first volume. So I will look forward to continuing on. We'll see where it goes from here. We have actually the only manga, the only manga I got from my local comic shop this previous month, October, which is a bummer because it means I'm still waiting on a bunch of stuff. But it kind of, I don't know if they're aware of it, but it truly is my brand that this is the particular series that they like get to me right on time. Maybe they know because if this was the one I was missing, I would just be so upset. This is Shonen Note Volume 5 by Yuki Kamitani. We are over halfway through the story now. Our main character is growing, changing. This is a fantastic story about a middle school boy who has joined his middle school choir. He loves music, he loves singing, and he is a amazingly beautiful and captivating soprano. Meanwhile, in the news and having taken the world by storm is this character here, Victor, who is also a boy soprano, who's just been kind of going through it the last volume. And this particular volume is really focused a lot on him, his struggle with coming to terms with growing up and change, and the reality that, boy sopranos have a very short lifespan. Not because we kill them, but more so they hit puberty at about 14, 15, and then all that beautiful soprano is just gone. Because that's what happens when hormones start hitting. And it's not a bad thing. It just means that you're changing and evolving. But it does mean that boy sopranos have a very short lifespan. They have a very, very small pocket of time that they can have a career if they just want to be a soprano, because we don't for good reason castrate young boys anymore to keep their beautiful high voice. That would be horrible. So we just let them go through puberty like everyone else. This is a fantastic volume. What can I say? It's Yuki Kamitani. I adore their series. This was one of my most highly anticipated releases. It just continues to be phenomenal. All of the kids in the choir are great to read. I just really enjoy this series. As someone who was part of choir for much of my high school career and earlier, actually, Man, oh man. Obviously it was not, I didn't have to worry about puberty mucking up my stuff. But as a soprano, there was certainly there's a lot of pressures on that. Plus, obviously, like, you do see the changes in how I guess just how a choir interacts and is built once you hit like that high school age versus children's choirs. It's I don't really know what I'm trying to say aside from I love the series. I'm so glad that it's been brought over in print, which was something that I wasn't necessarily expecting to happen. I hope everyone is reading this, because if you don't, then we can't be friends. Alright. So we have a BL manga. This is another debut. It's the first half. This is a 2-volume series. This one's from Tokyo Pop. It's one that I was fairly interested in. But this is My Dear Agent by Ebino Bisque. This is the story of the head bodyguard, I guess, of a rich kid. I say kid, he's like 20. And the new recruit on the security force, who is just, bit of a, lazy layabout. He's not exactly like an elite security operative. But he gets the job done, but kind of because he is fairly unreliable and can't really be trusted to get to work on time, and to not just like blow his money and, all these other things. He is put in the care of our main character. So they start living together, and then obviously like relationship develops from there, and there is a not surprising twist that why is this new guard, why does he still have his job despite all of these just absolute disregard for the job. As I said, I was fairly looking forward to this. I didn't love it, to be perfectly honest. I'll probably finish it, but it's not one that I would read again. I'm just like, okay. The relationship is fine. Like, this isn't offensive or like upsetting. It's not, bad, quote unquote, because it has, any overwhelmingly horrible or non-consensual or whatever aspects to it. This isn't like a moral play type of issue. I just found it kind of, that's fine. Didn't impress me, maybe. Which, like, not everything has to be impressive. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood for it. I don't know. I feel like I was looking forward to it, and maybe my expectations were too high. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know. Because, like, I wouldn't say that I'm the most picky person when it comes to BL. I collect bloody World's Greatest First Love, for God's sake. But I do tend to enjoy things with a bit more bite to them. I love a good, soft, fluffy story, right? But it has to give me something a bit more than just like, oh yes, two boy look at each other and then in love. I don't know. I enjoy a broad spectrum of all sorts of romance series, but especially BL, because we get a lot of broad spectrum BL stuff. As I said, I have World's Greatest First Love. I'm a big fan of Twittering Birds Never Fly. I adore our Not So Lonely Planet Guide, which is on the complete opposite side of that. 10 Count, everything, all sorts of BL manga I love. This, I could take it or leave it. It's one that I probably, like, I wasn't offended. I didn't dislike it, but it's probably not one I'm ever going to revisit compared to like a lot of other stuff, and which is normally my issue when I want to be collecting a title. So I will probably find a new home for this one in particular. We have a manhwa. This is one of, well, really I don't collect a lot of this, so it's probably very obvious as to what it is, but it is the third volume of Modao Zushi, the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, the comic released by Seven Seas. This is, I mean, this is, what can I say? It's Modao Zushi, but the comic version of the story. As someone who enjoys all the iterations of this, including, well, obviously the donghua and the novel. I haven't watched a lot of the live action. I'll get to it. But I have read bits and pieces of this particular comic, and it's a good adaptation. What can I say? If you are someone who likes comics more than novels, then check this one out. It's good. It's good. It's gay. It's good. Yeah, and it's full color. Just a really nice release from Seven Seas. It's also got French flaps, which is always a good thing. But certainly not least is a light novel, one that I haven't read. This is a one and done spin-off volume for a series that I really enjoy. Very, very popular manga, fairly popular anime. This is Chainsaw Man Buddy Stories, written by Sakaku Hishikawa. This is a collection of 4 short stories about our main character, or Denji, and Power, just kind of being like detectives. Just going on the buddy cop shenanigans, because detective. Power really enjoys like one particular detective character, and she's like, I can become a detective, and so she just drags Denji along and they go solve mysteries. I haven't read this one, but I really love these characters. They're dynamic. I don't know as to how well this particular book is written, but as a one and done, I think it's a really fun concept. I really miss Power. So, you know, it's great to see our old friends back together again. You know, just, I'm never gonna say no to more Chainsaw Man, frankly. It is absolutely wonderful. And yeah, I'm glad that amidst all the other like spin-off light novels that Viz licenses and releases for its Shonen Jump line, I'm glad that Chainsaw Man got a look in. Not necessarily surprising, but, you know, nice for me specifically. That is everything for the month of October. Not like a crazy amount of books or anything, but some really solid debuts, as mentioned, particularly manga. Some beloved anime franchises saw their final entries, and, you know, some great continuations. Let me know your thoughts, feelings, opinions on any of the titles that I spoke about today. It's very early in November, and I've already gotten some comics from my local comic shop, so we're already doing better. We're already doing better than we have been. Hopefully I'm starting to see more of my backlog, but certainly I'm falling behind a little bit less, which is always a good thing. So maybe in the coming months I will have just a crazy amount to show you. I don't know, because that hasn't happened yet. But yeah, plenty to talk about, plenty to look forward for in the coming months. And I'll catch you in the next video. Bye till then.